The wagon stopped outside Owen Mercer's ranch just before sunset, carrying a bride he had never asked for and a cruel joke the whole town had come to see. Men on horseback crowded the dusty road. Women watched from behind wagon curtains. Children stood near the fence, whispering and pointing. Yet when the tall woman slowly rose inside the wagon, every laugh around Owen's ranch suddenly died. Owen stood on the porch of his small house in Red Creek, Montana. His worn hat shaded his tired eyes, but it could not hide the anger growing inside them. He had spent the last 4 years living alone on the ranch after losing his wife, Ellen, to a winter fever. Since that terrible night, Owen had stopped visiting town unless he needed flour, coffee, or medicine for his cattle. He spoke little, smiled never, and worked until his hands bled because hard work kept painful memories away. The ranch had once been full of life. Ellen had planted yellow flowers near the porch and hung clean white curtains in every window. She had filled the house with music, warm bread, and laughter. Now the flowers were dead, the curtains were gray with dust, and the rooms were silent. Even the barn leaned to one side as if it had grown tired of standing. Owen had also fallen deeply into debt. 2 bad winters had killed many of his cattle, and a fire had destroyed most of his stored hay. The man who held the loan on the ranch was Vernon Crowley, the richest and cruelest landowner in Red Creek County. Vernon sat proudly on a black horse beside the wagon. His expensive coat was clean, his boots shone in the fading sunlight, and a pleased smile rested beneath his thin mustache. "I told you I would find a way to settle part of your debt," Vernon called. Owen looked from him to the covered wagon. "I asked for more time," Owen said. "And I gave you something better," Vernon replied, "a wife." Laughter broke out among Vernon's ranch hands. Owen's face hardened. "I did not ask for a wife." "No," Vernon said, "but every lonely farmer needs help. This woman has no family willing to keep her. You have no money to pay me, so I made an arrangement that helps everyone." The wagon driver pulled back the canvas. A woman sat alone on a wooden bench. She wore a plain brown dress with long sleeves and a faded green shawl over her broad shoulders. Her head was lowered, and her hands were folded quietly in her lap. Then Vernon ordered her to stand. The wagon moved beneath her weight as she slowly rose. She was taller than every man gathered there. Her head almost touched the wooden frame above her. She had wide shoulders, long arms, and a strong body that made the bench behind her look like a child's chair. She was not fat, as the cruel whispers suggested. She was simply very tall and powerfully built. One of Vernon's men laughed. "There you are, Mercer, a bride big enough to lift your barn back into place." Another man shouted, "Better build a larger bed." The crowd laughed again. The woman did not raise her head. Owen felt shame burn through him, though none of this was his doing. He understood what Vernon had planned. Vernon had not brought the woman to help him. He had brought her to humiliate them both. Owen was the broken widower who could not pay his debt, and she was the strange bride no other man supposedly wanted. Vernon leaned closer from his saddle. "Her name does not matter. She belongs here now. Keep her, send her away, or put her to work. I do not care." The woman's fingers tightened together. Owen stepped down from the porch. "She does not belong to anyone." Vernon's smile weakened for a moment. "Careful," he warned. "The ground beneath your boots still belongs to me until your debt is paid." Owen wanted to drag Vernon from the saddle. He wanted to wipe the cruel smile from his face. But the loan papers were real. One wrong move could cost Owen the ranch Ellen had loved. The woman carefully climbed down from the wagon. When her boots touched the ground, she stood nearly a full head taller than Owen. Several children gasped. A boy near the fence hid behind his mother's skirt. The woman kept her eyes lowered. Vernon tipped his hat toward Owen. "Enjoy your wedding gift." He turned his horse toward the road. His men followed him, laughing as they rode away. The townspeople slowly left as well, though many looked back for one last glance at the giant bride standing beside the broken cowboy. Soon, only Owen and the woman remained beneath the darkening sky. A cold wind moved across the open land. The woman's thin shawl lifted at the edges, and Owen noticed that her dress was torn near one wrist. Her boots were old and covered in dried mud. A dark bruise marked the side of her neck. Owen looked away before she noticed him staring. "The house is small," he said, "but there is a spare room." She gave no answer. "You can stay tonight," he continued. "Tomorrow we can decide what comes next." Still she remained silent. Owen wondered whether she could speak. Perhaps Vernon had chosen a mute woman to make the joke even crueler, or perhaps she had learned that silence was safer than words. He carried her small cloth bag inside. It was so light that it could not have held more than one dress. The woman ducked beneath the doorway and followed him into the house. Owen showed her the spare room. The bed was narrow, and when she looked at it, embarrassment crossed his face. "I can bring another blanket," he said. "You may sleep on the floor if the bed is too short." She entered the room without speaking and gently closed the door. That night Owen sat alone beside the cold fireplace. He could hear no movement from the spare room. The silence felt heavier than before because now it belonged to two wounded strangers instead of one. He thought about Vernon's words, a wife. The idea made his chest tighten. Ellen's memory still lived in every corner of the house. Owen could not imagine another woman sitting at her table or walking through her garden. Yet the stranger had not asked to be brought there. She had been treated like cattle, delivered as payment and displayed before the town. Owen stood and quietly walked toward the spare room. Through the narrow opening beneath the door he saw a line of moonlight. He almost knocked, but stopped when he heard a soft sound. She was crying. The sound was low and controlled, as if she feared someone might punish her for making noise. Owen stepped back. He returned to his chair and stayed awake until morning. At sunrise, he found the spare room empty. For one terrible moment, he thought she had run away. Then he saw her through the kitchen window. She stood near Ellen's dead garden, staring at the hard ground where nothing had grown for years. Owen hurried outside. "Do not touch that place," he said sharply. The woman turned toward him. For the first time, Owen clearly saw her face. She looked younger than he had expected, perhaps 30. Her face was gentle, with clear blue eyes and a small scar above her right eyebrow. Fear lived in those eyes, but so did something stronger. She looked at the dead garden, then back at Owen. He waited for her to lower her gaze again. Instead, she spoke. Her voice was soft, calm, and far different from the rough sound he had imagined. "I know your wife is buried beneath the cottonwood tree," she said. "But before Vernon Crowley took me, she was the woman who saved my life." Owen's breath stopped. The woman reached beneath her shawl and pulled out a small silver necklace. Owen recognized it at once. It had belonged to Ellen. He stared at the necklace, then at the stranger's face. "My name is Abigail Dawson," she said, "and your wife sent me here with a message she made me promise to give you." Owen could not take his eyes from the silver necklace resting in Abigail's large palm. It was shaped like a small wild rose, with one tiny green stone set in the center. He had given it to Ellen on their first wedding anniversary. She had worn it every day until the winter she died. "That is impossible," Owen said. Abigail closed her fingers carefully around the necklace. "I understand why you think that. My wife never knew you." "She did," Abigail replied, "but she never told you." The morning wind moved through the dead grass. Owen felt as if the ground beneath him had shifted. For 4 years, he had believed he knew every part of Ellen's life. They had shared a home, a bed, and dreams of children that never came. Yet now a stranger stood before him carrying something Ellen had taken to her grave. "Tell me everything," Owen said. Abigail glanced toward the house. "It is a long story." "Then we have time." They sat at the kitchen table. Abigail's knees nearly touched the bottom of it, and she had to turn slightly to fit comfortably in the chair. Owen placed 2 cups of coffee between them, though neither drank. Abigail kept the necklace in her hand as she began. 8 years earlier, before Owen and Ellen moved to Red Creek, Abigail had traveled west with her father and younger sister. Her father had hoped to find work in a mining town called Pine Hollow. Their wagon joined a small group of settlers crossing northern Montana. A storm struck during the journey. The road became mud, and one of the wagons slipped from a narrow ridge. Abigail's father and sister were killed. Abigail survived, but her leg was badly injured. "The others left me behind," Abigail said quietly. "They believed I would slow them down." Owen's jaw tightened. "They left you alone?" "Yes." Abigail had spent 2 nights beneath the broken wagon. She had no food and little water. On the 3rd morning, Ellen found her. Owen leaned forward. "Ellen." "She was traveling with a church group," Abigail said. "She heard me calling from below the road." Ellen had climbed down the muddy ridge while the other travelers warned her not to risk her life. She cleaned Abigail's wound, gave her water, and stayed beside her until help arrived. "She sat with me through the whole night," Abigail continued. "I was afraid to sleep because I thought I would not wake again. Ellen held my hand and told me about a stubborn cowboy named Owen Mercer." For the first time in years, Owen almost smiled. "What did she say?" "She said you pretended to be hard, but you once carried an injured rabbit 3 miles because you could not leave it suffering." Owen looked down at his coffee. Abigail's lips lifted slightly. "She said you would deny it." "She spoke too much. She spoke of you with great love." The small smile disappeared from Owen's face. Abigail explained that Ellen took her to a mission house in Pine Hollow. Abigail remained there while her leg healed. Ellen visited whenever she could and brought books, cloth, and food. When Abigail was strong enough to work, Ellen helped her find a position with a family. "Why did she give you the necklace?" Owen asked. "She did not give it to me then." Abigail's fingers tightened around the silver rose. 4 years ago, Ellen came to Pine Hollow again. She was weak and coughing. She told me she was very sick. Owen rose so quickly that his chair scraped across the floor. "She left this ranch while she was sick." "She did." "She told me she was visiting her cousin." Abigail's eyes filled with sadness. "She did not want you to know how frightened she was." Owen walked to the window. Anger and grief twisted together inside him. Ellen had known she was dying. She had carried that fear alone, believing she was protecting him. "What message did she give you?" he asked. Abigail stood behind him, but she kept a respectful distance. "She said that if she died, you would blame yourself. She feared you would close your heart and let this place die with her." Owen stared at the ruined barn and broken fences outside. Abigail continued. "She made me promise that one day, when I was able, I would find you. She told me to return the necklace and say these words." Owen slowly faced her. Abigail's voice softened. She said, "Tell Owen that love does not betray the dead when it chooses to live again." Owen's face went pale. For several moments, neither of them spoke. The only sound came from the clock above the stove. Then Owen turned away. "She had no right," he said. Abigail looked confused. "She had no right to plan my life after she was gone. She was trying to save you. I did not need saving." Abigail looked through the window at the dead garden, the leaning barn, and the empty pasture. "No," she said gently. "You only needed someone to watch you disappear." Owen turned sharply. but the pain in her face stopped his anger. She had not said it to insult him. She had said it because she understood. Abigail placed the necklace on the table. "I did not come here to become your wife," she said. "Vernon Crowley lied to both of us." Owen's eyes narrowed. "What did he tell you?" "He said you had agreed to take me in as payment for work my mother owed him." "Your mother?" "She died last spring. Vernon claimed she owed him money for land and medicine. I worked in his house to repay it, but the amount never became smaller." Owen knew Vernon's methods. He trapped poor families with false records and impossible interest. Once they owed him, they never escaped. "He brought you here because he knew about Ellen," Owen said. Abigail nodded. "He found the necklace among my things. He asked why I had it. When I told him, he began laughing." Owen's hands curled into fists. "This was never a joke about your size," he said. "He wanted to hurt me with Ellen's memory. And he wanted to punish me for trying to leave." Owen looked at the bruise on Abigail's neck. "Did Vernon do that?" She pulled the shawl higher. "One of his men did." Owen felt the same fury that had risen when Vernon displayed her before the town. This time, it burned hotter. "You are not going back to him," Owen said. Abigail's eyes widened. "He owns the paper on your ranch." "He does not own you. He may take everything from you. He is already trying." That afternoon, Owen walked with Abigail to Ellen's garden. The hard soil was cracked, and dead stems covered the ground. "Ellen loved this place," he said. "She planted roses, daisies, and sunflowers." Abigail knelt and pressed her fingers into the earth. "The soil is not dead," she said. "It looks dead. It is only neglected." The word struck deeper than she knew. Owen brought her a shovel. Together, they cleared weeds and turned the dry soil. Abigail worked with steady strength, but her movements remained careful. She did not destroy the old roots. She examined each one before setting it aside. Near sunset, Abigail found a small green stem hidden beneath the dead leaves. "Owen," she called. He came beside her. A tiny rose shoot had survived. He stared at it, unable to speak. Abigail placed loose soil around its base. Some things wait a long time for kindness. The next days brought a quiet change to the ranch. Abigail repaired torn curtains and cooked simple meals. Owen fixed the roof above her room and built a longer bed from spare boards. They worked without saying much, but the silence between them no longer felt cold. Children from town began appearing near the fence. At first, they only watched Abigail from a distance. Then a small girl named Lucy left a bundle of wildflowers near the gate. Abigail placed them in a jar on the porch. The following day, 3 more children came. Abigail showed them how to plant beans in straight rows. Her large hands moved gently around the tiny seeds, and the children soon forgot to fear her. Owen watched from the barn. For the first time since Ellen's death, laughter returned to the ranch. That evening, Owen and Abigail ate on the porch. The sky burned orange over the hills. "You are good with children," Owen said. Abigail looked down at her plate. "I always wanted a family." "Why did you never marry?" A shadow crossed her face. "Men did not see a wife when they looked at me." Owen felt ashamed of the question. Abigail continued before he could apologize. "Some saw a worker. Some saw a strange thing to display. Vernon saw something he could sell." Owen looked at her hands resting on the table. "I see Abigail Dawson," he said. Her blue eyes lifted to his. Before either could speak again, hoofbeats sounded on the road. 6 riders appeared through the dust. Vernon Crowley rode at the front. Beside him was Sheriff Wade Hollies, a weak man who often followed Vernon's orders. Vernon stopped near the porch and pulled a folded paper from his coat. "I warned you, Mercer," he called. "That woman belongs to me until her family debt is paid." Abigail stood, fear tightening her face. Owen stepped in front of her. Vernon smiled. "And since you refuse to return my property, I have decided to collect your ranch instead." Sheriff Hollis unfolded another paper. "Owen Mercer," he announced, "by order of the county court, this land will be seized at sunrise tomorrow." Owen stared at the papers. Then Abigail's hand closed gently around his arm. "Do not fight them yet," she whispered. Owen looked up at her. For the first time since arriving, Abigail was smiling. "I know where Vernon keeps the real debt records," she said, "and I know how we can destroy him." The riders left Owen's ranch after Sheriff Wade warned him not to remove anything from the property. Vernon Crowley remained in the saddle a moment longer, smiling as if the ranch already belonged to him. "At sunrise," Vernon said, "you will be standing on the road with your giant bride and nothing else." Owen took one step toward him, but Abigail tightened her hand around his arm. "Let him go," she whispered. Vernon turned his horse and followed the others toward Red Creek. Dust rose behind them, hiding the road until the riders disappeared. Owen faced Abigail. "Tell me what you know." She looked toward the darkening sky. "Vernon keeps his real records inside a locked room behind his office. The papers he shows the court are false. The real books contain every payment people made to him." "How do you know?" "I cleaned that room for 2 years. He believed I could not read." Owen stared at her. "My mother taught me," Abigail said. "I saw names, numbers, and false debts. Vernon changed the records so families could never finish paying him." "Can we prove it?" "There is one book with a red leather cover. It has his true records, including your loan." Owen went inside and took his gun belt from a wooden peg. Abigail blocked the doorway. "You cannot ride into town carrying a gun," she said. "Vernon wants you angry. If you threaten him, Sheriff Wade will arrest you. He plans to steal my home. And we will stop him with the truth." Owen looked at the revolver, then slowly placed it on the table. They waited until night covered the valley. Owen saddled his horse, while Abigail prepared a small lantern and a cloth bag. They rode toward Red Creek beneath a moon hidden by thin clouds. The town was quiet when they arrived. Most windows were dark. Vernon's office stood beside the bank, a narrow brick building with a painted sign above the door. Owen tied the horse behind the blacksmith shop. "Stay close," he said. Abigail shook her head. "You should stay close to me." Despite the danger, Owen almost smiled. They crossed the alley and reached the back of Vernon's office. Abigail felt beneath the lowest window ledge and removed a small iron key. "He never knew I made a copy," she said. The key opened the back door. Inside, the office smelled of tobacco, ink, and old paper. Abigail covered the lantern so only a thin line of light escaped. She led Owen past Vernon's desk to a bookcase against the wall. Together, they pushed it aside. A narrow door stood behind it. Abigail unlocked that door as well. The hidden room contained shelves filled with ledgers, land papers, and sealed envelopes. Owen saw the names of farmers he knew written across the boxes. Many of those families had lost everything. Abigail searched the shelves until she found a thick book with a red leather cover. "This is it." Owen opened the ledger. His name appeared near the middle. The true record showed that he had nearly finished paying his loan 2 years earlier. Vernon had added false charges for cattle medicine, transport, and interest. According to the real numbers, Owen owed only $20. The court paper claimed he owed more than $800. "That thief," Owen said. A sound came from the outer office. The front door opened. Abigail quickly closed the ledger. Owen lowered the lantern flame. Heavy footsteps crossed the floor. Vernon's voice came from the other room. "I know you are in there." Owen looked toward the hidden doorway. Vernon pushed it open and stepped inside with Sheriff Wade behind him. Both men carried guns. Vernon's smile was gone. "I knew she would return for that book," he said. "I should have burned it the day she left." Abigail held the ledger against her chest. Sheriff Wade pointed his revolver at Owen. "Put the book down." Owen raised his empty hands. "That ledger proves Vernon has been stealing land." "It proves nothing," Vernon said. "It belongs to me." "It contains every true payment," Abigail replied. Vernon's face twisted with anger. "You should have remained silent." He stepped toward her and reached for the ledger. Abigail did not move. Vernon grabbed the book, but she held it firmly. He pulled with both hands, yet he could not take it from her. His face turned red. "Let go, you great beast." Owen moved forward. Sheriff Wade pressed the gun against his chest. "Do not make me shoot you." Owen looked into the sheriff's eyes. "You know those records are real." Wade's hand trembled. "You watched Vernon take the Miller farm," Owen continued. "You watched him remove the Bakers from their home. How many families must lose everything before you remember that badge means something?" Vernon released the ledger and turned on the sheriff. "Do not listen to him." Abigail opened the book and held it beneath the lantern light. "Your name is here too, Sheriff," she said. Wade looked at her. "Vernon recorded every payment he gave you." The sheriff's face went pale. Vernon reached for his gun. Owen moved first. He struck Vernon's wrist, sending the revolver across the floor. Vernon crashed into a shelf, knocking papers everywhere. The sheriff raised his weapon, but instead of pointing it at Owen, he aimed it at Vernon. "Do not move," Wade said. Vernon stared at him in disbelief. "You work for me." "Not anymore." By dawn, half the town had gathered outside the courthouse. Abigail placed the red ledger before Judge Henry Lawson. Farmers and widows crowded the room, waiting while the judge examined the records. Vernon stood beside Sheriff Wade with his hands tied. The judge compared the real ledger with the false papers. His expression grew darker with every page. Finally, he looked at Owen. "Mr. Mercer, your loan has been paid in full. Mr. Crowley owes you money." A murmur passed through the room. The judge turned toward the families behind Owen. "These records show years of theft and fraud. Every land claim made through these false debts will be reviewed." People began to cry. One old farmer covered his face with both hands. A widow near the door hugged her children. Vernon looked at Abigail with pure hate. "This is your fault," he said. Abigail met his eyes without fear. "No," she replied, "it is yours." Vernon was taken away to the county jail. Sheriff Wade surrendered his badge and agreed to testify against him. When Owen and Abigail returned to the ranch, the children from town were waiting near the gate. Lucy ran forward and handed Abigail a fresh bundle of yellow flowers. "My mother says you saved our farm," the girl said. Abigail knelt carefully and accepted them. "No," she said, "your family saved it by refusing to give up." The girl hugged Abigail around the neck. Owen watched as the other children surrounded her. There was no fear in their eyes now. They saw the gentle woman who had returned their homes and planted life in dead soil. Weeks passed. Neighbors came to help repair Owen's barn and fences. Families Vernon had cheated brought wood, tools, seeds, and cattle. The ranch slowly became alive again. Ellen's garden grew brighter each day. The single rose shoot opened into a small yellow flower. Abigail planted daisies beside it, but she left the rose in the center. One evening, Owen found Abigail packing her cloth bag. "What are you doing?" he asked. "The debt is gone," she said. "Vernon cannot force me back. I can find work somewhere else." Owen felt a sudden emptiness inside him. "Do you want to leave?" Abigail looked around the room. "I do not want you to feel trapped by Ellen's promise." Owen walked toward her. "For years I thought loving anyone again would mean I had forgotten her," he said. "But you brought her final message to me. You restored her garden. You brought laughter back to this house." Abigail's eyes filled with tears. Owen took the small silver necklace from his pocket. He had carried it every day since she returned it. "Ellen did not send you here to replace her," he said. "She sent you because she knew two lonely people might understand each other." He placed the necklace in Abigail's hand. "I do not want you to stay because of a debt, a promise, or a cruel joke." Abigail's voice shook. "Why do you want me to stay?" Owen looked up into her clear blue eyes. "Because when I look at you, I do not see a giant bride. I see the strongest, kindest woman I have ever known." A tear rolled down Abigail's cheek. Owen took her hand. "Stay as Abigail Dawson," he said. "Stay as my partner, and when you are ready, stay as my wife." Abigail lowered her head until her forehead rested gently against his. Her first words at the ranch had brought back Ellen's memory. Her next words gave Owen a future. "I am ready," she whispered. They married beneath the cottonwood tree 1 month later. The whole town came. Children filled the garden with yellow flowers, and neighbors brought tables of food. No one laughed when Abigail walked toward Owen. They stood in silence because they had finally understood what Owen had learned. The woman they once mocked for her size had a heart larger than their fear, courage stronger than Vernon's cruelty, and a voice powerful enough to return stolen homes, awaken a broken man, and make a dead garden bloom again.